Revelation of A.S.H. Chapter 3. A New Nightmare. Quinn Shalom. A warm hand touched my frozen skin. It was still dark. The power hadn't been restored. All my plants were probably frozen. The cologne of the person touching me smelled like a warm meadow. I could also smell a strange musk, cedar shavings, on the ground, and my dying chrysanthemums. My own blood tainted the air. I could feel my blood crusted against my shoulder and back, and on my stomach and legs, and between my thighs was something else. I wished I was dead, but a voice whispered to me to fight. I have to find and kill whatever did this to me, to avenge my children and my husband. It was the strange voice that encouraged me to seek shelter and live. My hand clenched over the strange ring on my thumb. "She's alive," a strangely accented man's voice whispered, "but she won't be for long." Something warm and coppery was forced between my lips. I swallowed on reflex and almost gagged. It was blood, but it tasted oddly sweet, like it was mixed with honey. As I swallowed again, I started sucking slightly. I wanted more as the warm feeling spread through me. "Should you do that? She's a wolf," a soft female voice spoke. A slightly gruff voice answered, "We don't have a choice. If she's going to live long enough to get to a hospital. She's only the third one we've found alive. I won't lose her. She might be able to tell us something." "Do you think those were her family?" She sounded like an angel. "Yes, a husband, wife, and 2 children lived here," he answered. "Oh." I realized the soft voice sounded very young, like Molly, but Molly and Miles were gone. Ken was gone. He said I was only the third they found alive. There were over 500,000 in our city, and half that many in the surrounding suburbs and towns. A new voice shouted, "Gerard, they're coming back." "Shut the hell up, Liam. They'll come faster if you shout," the one called Gerard whispered harshly. "I got this coat from the house," the soft voice said, and my long winter coat was wrapped around me. "There's more dead inside, a wolf and a human. It was him." I groaned, trying to make sense of everything as they buttoned my coat around my wounded body. Then I was picked up. "We're going. Hang on, mon petit loup. Movement is going to feel very strange, but trust me, I will not let them hurt you further. Petra, Liam, lead them south, then catch up. Hurry, it's almost dawn, and we'll lose the cover of darkness to search and escape." I shuddered as a howl echoed in the distance, followed by a second. Something screeched. To my addled brain, it sounded like a velociraptor from those Dinosaur World movies Miles loved. It was then I realized something was very wrong. In the still air, I heard nothing but my Savior's rapid footsteps, too fast for a normal person. As I listened harder, there were no cars, no traffic noises, no planes, no familiar sounds of the city or the suburbs, not even a dog barking. Only my Savior talking to someone on a radio or Bluetooth. In the distance, a helicopter roared toward us. I heard voices and snarling growls as I realized Liam and Petra were both shouting. Then it sounded like there were monsters fighting. They sounded so far away now. I felt Gerard leap and heard the sound of giant wings beating the air. Then we were floating. The pain in my body made me black out. The jolt of being laid down woke me. Then an IV was put in my arm. Someone covered me with a warm blanket. Gerard was holding my hand. I know it was him, but I couldn't open my frozen eyes. "Thank you." I don't know, but he heard my whisper. "Monloup, I'm so sorry this happened to you, to your family. I promise I will make it right. I will protect you." His accent told me he was from France, or maybe Canada. His fingertips caught in the blood dried in my hair. "Merci, mon ange." "Thank you, my angel." I breathed out the little French I remembered from high school, and he squeezed my hand. I made it out alive again. I was saved, and once more my family was lost. I roused to the sound of a hospital, but I couldn't move. My body felt like it was on fire. Even my bones hurt. I panted for breath. So hot, hotter than any fever I ever suffered. The voices I heard didn't make sense to me. "She's in her last day, I think. Only mated wolves, fae, or human females are allowed in here." "Yes, doctor. Her vitals are normal, but we still don't know why she won't wake up. She was in really bad shape when she was brought in. Be patient. She's healing at a normal rate." "What about her fever?" "It's called heat for a reason. Get the fae. He's the only one that seems to calm her." Light burned in my eyes. Cool skin touched me. Then they left. Moments later, a hand squeezed mine and the fire subsided. "Hold on a little while longer," Gerard whispered as I sank into darkness. The rapid beeping of machines, screaming alarms, and yells of surprised voices startled me from a nightmare. "She's shifting again." I wanted to scream in pain as fire burned through my body. I could feel it in my bones, and it felt like they were breaking. "Where's her mate, that fae?" I struggled against those holding me down, hurting me. I want to bite them, kill them. "He's back working the search and rescue." I started to scream and scream and scream before the blackness pulled me down. I woke up to the sound of growling. Terrified, I struggled to get up, but I was restrained. The werewolves were back. They were here, and I couldn't even get out of bed to hide. Nothing made sense. A blindfold covered my eyes as I pleaded for someone to help me, but they didn't listen. Instead, something cold went into my IV. The sensations of breaking bones started over again. It was a nightmare that I couldn't escape. "Please, Lord, help me," I prayed as the pain made me scream again. But my agony came out as a gurgling, growling sound. I wondered if I had ruptured something in my throat as I passed out. Why are they torturing me? Please let me die. Voices pulled at my consciousness. I recognized one of them. I felt like I was eavesdropping on the real world from my nightmare. "We found her near the bodies of 2 children and 2 dead wolves. Petra said there was also a dead man and a wolf in her house. Her family fought hard. She had a severely broken ankle and crushed collarbone. Both looked like mauling injuries. She had been bitten and clawed all over. I think she was also violated. She was in heat when we brought her in. I do not know how she survived it all," Gerard was saying. He sounded pained as he recounted my injuries to the stranger. "How did you know the extent of her injuries?" the woman demanded. The madame was naked. She called into a greenhouse. There were the scents of 2 more wolves in the yard, almost like scent markings, but they smelled abnormal, like something was wrong with them. We encountered many similar scents since that night. The mad wolves and vampires all have that scent. We do not know who she is. Do I need to send Petra or Liam back to her home? Gerard offered. No, you don't need to send anyone. The Alpha Commander has taken over the search and rescue personally. Her name is Quinn S. Phillips, according to the Colorado DMV. Facebook says she was a mom with a son in karate classes and an autistic daughter who loved art. She ran a charity to help parents with special needs children. Her husband was a researcher with some private think tank trying to clean up the environment from pharmaceutical contamination. He published a paper on it a few years ago. They seem like really decent people. Poor woman, she is going to wake up in this world as one of us. The woman sounded so sad for me. The monarch's family was visiting the quarantine area when it happened. The commander will want to talk to her. An Alpha did this to her. A born pureblood. He will want to know who. Gerard squeezed my hand. I could feel the cold metal of the ring pressed into my palm. He must think I'm playing possum, but I doubted if I could move. You are not alone, Madame Phillips. Wake up soon, he whispered. Then he pressed a kiss into my temple. There was a sighing in my head. Then it made a whining sound as he let go of my hand. Mrs. Phillips, if you can hear me, I'm Dr. McIntyre. My resident, Dr. Trinity, will be handling your case while I'm gone. I know you're in there, Quinn. That it was horrible for you, but you're safe now. Try to wake up. I would like to meet you when I get back. The woman doctor spoke so softly and soothingly. Her voice had a strange lilt. Then she left with Gerard. I listened to the sound of machines and murmuring on the door after they left. I wished I could move. But then I didn't want to move. I didn't want to wake up. I didn't want to be alive. Grief howled like a lost soul in my mind. My children were dead. My family was dead. And this was not the first time my family was murdered violently. It was the third. My mind repeated it over and over. I could feel myself breaking into pieces as the nightmare of that night and another swirled together in my memory. The growling voice in my mind became stronger and louder and vowed revenge. I seriously began to think I was going insane again, like I did after Aunt Judith died, hearing voices, feeling rage, and blacking out. Last time, they put me in Elmhurst Mental Hospital, or, as I told Kenneth, my personal hell on earth. I wouldn't go back to a place like that. I needed to escape. Finally, I woke up. The ring was still in my hand, so I slipped it on my thumb. Evening light was shining golden in the window. The TV was on the news, so low I could barely hear it. I fumbled to turn up the volume. I listened in horror as the cheerful blonde anchorwoman recounted the most recent death toll. She tried and failed to have a somber tone. Many hundreds of thousands of humans, vampires, werewolves, and fays were dead, but the survivors were still being rescued daily. The most recent death toll put the casualties at over 900,000, but the toll was expected to grow as the search continued. The area was under quarantine to all species except fae, who were unaffected by the contamination. She ended with an off-color comment about how the ski season in Colorado was canceled indefinitely. The weather reporter gave the local forecast, then for the affected areas of the Front Range of the Rocky Mountains. The quarantine zone stretched from south of the New Mexico border to the northern Wyoming border. There was a change coming to the borders and the buffer zone next week with the milder weather. They expressed concerns of spreading the contaminated snow through the melt runoff after the storm by the unseasonably mild temperatures, but water tests showed no unusual contaminants. There was a chance the QZ zone could be reduced in size after the scientists finished testing the samples. A slightly balding anchorman reported the Congressional Investigation Committee into what they were now calling the Revelation Night found no wrongdoing or purposeful intent on the part of the werewolf and vampire communities. The cause of the werewolf and vampire insanity was still unknown. Doctors and researchers from every community, human and non-human, were searching for the reason, but no answers had yet been found, according to the latest government report. There was also a 2-hour-long segment featuring survivor stories. The first story was about 2 werewolves, brothers of the American werewolf monarch, who rescued a large group of humans that night. 2 grateful teenage girls recounted how their dad died. They were saved only a few blocks from my house. The older girl was in Molly's grade. Then their brother was rescued along with a group who took refuge in a bank vault. The pair of werewolf warriors saved a family hiding in a school, and another group which sheltered in the walk-in freezer of the Culvers I took the kids to only a few hours before they died. The next segment revealed a mated pair of vampires and their werewolf neighbor hiding and fighting to protect humans in their warehouse bookstore. I knew them too. A final story about a trio of vampiresses and soldiers from the local army base and how they fought and held the entrance of a local hospital ER against uncounted homicidally insane male non-humans. So many heroic stories of humans and non-humans working together, fighting together against those who had gone mad. The announcer promised more survivor stories after the next hour of media coverage. I listened to the news cycle repeat itself all night. At 8 in the morning, I just closed my eyes when the door opened. "Good morning, Miss Phillips. I see we still aren't awake, but that's okay. I'm just here to clean your room again. My Alpha told me to keep an eye on you." The elderly man talked and hummed as he worked. After a while, he patted my hand. "Don't you worry none. We'll all be here for you when you wake up. You're one of us now." Then he shuffled off to the next room. He was an odd old man, with otter cologne, musk, burnt marshmallows, and tobacco. As I drifted off to sleep, I wondered what he meant by one of us. Had he survived the massacre too? And who was Alpha? There was a noon press conference where the government's press representatives claimed they didn't know what happened. Twice nurses came in to check on me. I pretended to be asleep. I wondered how many months I had been in the hospital. My ankle and shoulder were healed, but the news made it sound like only a week had passed since the Revelation Night happened. I tried to understand what was going on, but I was so confused. Later that afternoon, a pair of doctors stood over my bed and talked about me like I was brain dead. I was dozing, so I didn't move when I woke up. They didn't smell human. I didn't understand how I knew this, but I did. The voice that whispered in my mind kept telling me a lot of strange things, like he was a wolf and she was a fae. The only reason she isn't awake is because she doesn't want to be, or she is rejecting the change, Dr. Trinity. She has the markers and the virus match. She shifted and even had her first heat. The male said it like he was reading. From the way Monsieur Gerard described finding her to Dr. McIntyre, I don't blame her for not wanting to wake up. Her family died in front of her. She was mauled, forcibly mated, marked, and changed. It must have been terrible. Dr. Trinity had a horrified tone to her voice. Dr. Lair, do your females survive such trauma? Yes, sometimes, but it breaks their wolves. They're moving Mrs. Phillips in a few days. Maybe they can figure it out who marked and changed her. If he survived the madness, maybe his presence can wake her. Maybe they can get past this. I'm sure he didn't mean it. She'll need him for the pregnancy, despite what happened. Dr. Lair sighed heavily. I started to panic at his words. The monitor beeped faster as I thought, horrified. I'm pregnant with one of those things? My eyes flew open when they touched me. I want... My throat felt like sandpaper as I tried to speak. Mrs. Phillips, please try to calm down. Your heart is still recovering. You had a great deal of blood loss. The young man was trying to calm me, but nothing would. I grabbed his hand and crushed it in my desperation. I want an abortion. I want it dead. He yanked away, cradling his limp hand. The woman doctor's hand flew to her mouth as Dr. Lair announced, I'm sorry, Mrs. Phillips, but we can't. Not only is it illegal to terminate a pure-blood werewolf pup, but it would kill you. Your wolf won't let you abort your pup. His voice was too calm as he declared my fate. I wanted to hurt them, while tears poured down my face. I screamed at them. Then I die. It raped me. It chewed me like meat. They killed my son and tried to rape my daughter before I shot her. Then it still... I choked on the memory. I don't want that thing's offspring inside me. I was hyperventilating and shaking as I clutched my shoulders. Suddenly my skin burned and my bones cracked. In my mind, something howled. Claws came out the end of my fingers, and I hallucinated myself turning into one of them. Then I was one of them. If they wouldn't help me, I would harm them. I would force them to kill me as the voice argued with me to stop. 3 large men ran in and shifted into werewolves, trying to restrain me. As the nurses and doctors scattered, my rampage spilled out into the hall. I maimed 2 and killed one of them. It was almost too easy. Miles said the only way to make sure they were dead was to remove the head. Miles. At the thought of my son, I hesitated. I stared horrified at the werewolf head in my hands. It was turning back into a young face. Surprised, wide eyes stared at me in death. I dropped it. Killing him had been almost too natural. I was a housewife, not some hand-to-hand combat specialist. I just ripped his head off his body. I murdered him. In the reflection of the glass, behind the mirror nurse's desk, I saw a brown wolf-like creature, a thing from my nightmares. It was me. Somehow I knew it was me. I was one of them now, a werewolf. Quinn? Quinn. Monloop, you need to calm down. Gerard was glowing golden. His aura made it look almost like he had wings. Pale blonde hair created a halo around his perfect features. He wasn't human either. "What are you?" The words sounded strange as I forced them out my throat, more growl than language. "I am an angelus, a type of fae or fairy. Please, Quinn, try to imagine your human body and change back," he begged me. "No one wants to hurt you." The wild, angry thing inside of me wanted to comply. His glow made us feel warm and safe, but the human in me wanted to die. The change was less painful this time, and at the end of it, I was kneeling naked, covered in blood, and sobbing. "I killed him. I didn't mean to." "It was an accident, Monloop. You don't know the power of your wolf." Gerard gently placed a blanket over my shoulders, hugging me as I begged. "Please, Gerard, it raped me. I don't want this thing inside of me." "I know, Quinn, but it cannot be removed or you will die." His tone was so gentle as he held me. "I don't want to be alive. I don't want to be the only one to make it out alive again," I confessed, deciding rage was not enough to keep me going. First, my mother, father, and baby brother, then my aunt, and now my husband and children. I couldn't do it. I couldn't go on. "Quinn, what happened to you?" Gerard's murmur, the question. Dozens heard my heart break as I sobbed out the details of the Revelation night. That we thought the warnings were a Halloween hoax, that the power went out, and how my husband was killed first, then my son, then I was pinned down in the snow. I broke my son's sword so she could get away. But being autistic, Molly had frozen in her panic, and the other one had pinned her down. So I used my last bullet to spare her from what then happened to me. I told them why I couldn't run, because it had crushed my ankle when it bit me. I remember feeling the bones grinding together as it dragged me back toward it. I confessed how I prayed for death when I saw how the other violated my daughter's dead body while the bigger one raped me. I don't know how long we sat there, but several others, including my Fey doctor, were sobbing at the horror I endured. Finally, Gerard carried me back to a room, but not my destroyed room. He took me to the one next to it. He sat me on a bench in the shower and washed off the blood, probably ruining the expensive suit he was wearing. I couldn't even make myself lift my head. He gently dried me and dressed me, brushing my hair and murmuring soothing words as he promised to always stand by me. I just stared out at the sky as I lay in bed. My mind did not want to be in my body. I was a monster now, and a monster was growing inside of me. Next, Chapter 4.